Hello, my name is Ben Steele and I'm the PGC Primary Cohort Leader at Didsbury, and I'm here to talk you through the PG final placement, your role and how you can best support your students whilst they're with you in school. All the documents you need to support the student can be found on the Partnership website. These include the lesson observation performers, these are called ROLOs, the interim and final reports, the handbook, and what you also might find really useful is there are some examples of completed reports and completed lesson observations. The handbook for the placement is also on the Partnership website, and it's the same handbook for student, class tutor, that's you, and the MMU tutor. So we all know what we should be doing. It's got everything in it, and it also has a summary at the front. The handbook is your first port of call if you need to know what to do. The placement is 11 weeks long. It finishes on the 27th of June. The vast majority of students will finish on this day unless they've missed significant time due to illness or other reasons. Two other important dates are the week beginning the 12th of May, that's when the interim report needs to be completed, and the final week beginning the 23rd of June, when the final report is completed. These weeks are also when the MMU tutor will visit, observe and meet with yourself and the student. Students should be doing some teaching before Easter and gradually building to teach 70% of the timetable by interim and 80% in the final 2 weeks. Your student should be becoming increasingly independent and immersed in the whole life of the school and the professional responsibilities of being a teacher. Many students are keen to get stuck in quickly, but the amount of teaching in the first few weeks should be negotiated and agreed, and it does vary from student to student. Please use your professional judgment. So expect your student to become a mini of you in many ways, but also over the 11 weeks develop their own professional identity and style in the school and the classroom. These are all the normal expectations we would expect the student to be involved with. We want them to talk to parents, collect the children, do a display, mark work, set and mark homework, attend all staff meetings and get involved in extracurricular activities. Apart from planning, teaching and assessment and evaluation of lessons, the student has some specific tasks they need to engage with. They have a behaviour management portfolio and associated tasks which they began in PG1. Many will have completed this, but some will need to continue with this. If they're in Key Stage 1, they're required to complete their phonics booklet. This involves teaching and being observed delivering sequences of phonics sessions. If they're in Key Stage 2, they will deliver phonics through spelling activities, so word level work in literacy. There's a study of a child with English as an additional language, and they have an EAL portfolio to help support them with this. They may need to use another child from another class if there isn't a child with EAL in your class. All the PG students have iPads, and this is their big chance to be a star on the mini iPad screen. They will either love this or hate this, but please make them do it. We would like you to film them teaching at least once so they can listen to their own voice fingerprint and to help them reflect on their own practice. This is based on work by John Hattie, Visible Learning, and means giving an enhanced role for teachers so they become evaluators of their own teaching. According to John Hattie, visible learning and teaching occurs when teachers see learning through the eyes of students and help them become their own teachers. The students must also be assessing the children in a variety of ways. This is a normal expectation. So what's your role? The role of the mentor is very similar to the relationship you have with your children as a teacher. So you model for the children. We want you to model for the student. You question the children. We want you to question the student. You challenge the children, and we want you to challenge the student, support the student, encourage the student, and at the end of the day, you're a role model for the student. Please read the student's report from PG1 so you know where they're at. We've asked the student to identify key issues which they are focusing on in this placement. What are these, and what are their targets to achieve these? Please provide the student with your schemes of work or medium-term plans so that they can begin to plan their own lessons. The students may well work from your plans in the early days, but the expectation is that they are independently planning very soon. We ask that you observe the student formally at least once a week and give them written feedback on a Rolo. That's a record of lesson observation. Many tutors, school tutors, type these out, although handwritten is perfectly acceptable. It's also good practice to feedback as soon as possible. Please arrange a time with a cup of tea and a nice cake to meet with your student to review progress, discuss planning and set targets for next week. We know students really value this time. At interim and final, write a report on the student and highlight where they are in their 6 areas of practice. More about this later. One key part of your role is to set your student targets. These could be short term, so next lesson I'd like to, medium term, next week, or long term, by the end of the placement. Targets should be SMART, so that means specific, not vague, measurable, not woolly, achievable, not impossible, relevant to their professional development and with a time scale. An example of a SMART target might be, next week, so we've got a time, demonstrate your subject knowledge and challenge the children so it's relevant by asking higher order questions. Use Bloom's taxonomy. Write 5 possible questions, so it's specific and achievable on your lesson plan. Check this has moved the children's learning forward using traffic lights, so we can measure it. So we can see it does take a bit more effort and thought, but hopefully the outcome for the student and the children will be much better than if our target was, you need to ask harder questions. The grading criteria is a really important document. It looks like this, and it helps you and the student track progress and set targets. So as such, it's a key document. It describes what the student might or should be demonstrating against the standards. They're in the first column. If they are 4, not meeting, in the second column. 3, requiring improvement, that's the third column. 2, a good pass, that's in the fourth column. And 1, an outstanding pass, that's the fifth column. In this case, we're looking at subject, curriculum, and pedagogical knowledge and understanding. And it does this for the 6 areas of standards, so we can track where the student is in relation to these 6 areas. Professional responsibilities, subject and curriculum knowledge and understanding, planning, teaching, assessment and monitoring, and classroom organisation and behaviour management. So how do I use the grading criteria? Each week we ask the student to highlight where they think they're at on the grading criteria based on the evidence they have. This is probably what you've written on a lesson observation. This will also help them set targets. So in this example, the student thinks that in terms of planning, they are overall a good pass, but they need to work on their differentiation and how to overcome children's barriers to learning, because these 2 are highlighted in the 3 column, requires improvement. Now, the interim and final report looks very similar to the grading criteria. Halfway through the placement at interim, the MMU tutor will visit to do a joint observation of the student teaching. They're going to go through their files, discuss their progress with you, and agree their grades with yourself. Before interim, agree with the student where they are in terms of 4, not meeting, 3, requires improvement, 2, good pass, or 1, outstanding. And before the tutor visits, on the report, highlight in 1 colour where the student is against each element and add comments to quantify your judgment. So in this example, the student in terms of subject knowledge is 3, they're requiring improvement. You've highlighted it in yellow, and this is where they're at interim. You're going to do this again at final on the same document, but you're going to highlight in a different colour, so we can clearly see that the student has progressed to be good at final, and this is shown in blue. So the new report format combines the grading criteria and the report in 1 document. Do not print this out, it's a huge document, but keep it electronically, and this is what we want you to share with the MMU tutor at interim and final, so that you can finalise and agree the students' grades. Once the report's been finalised, you need to email it to the placements office at Didsbury. So the role of the MMU tutor is to support the student and yourself, to moderate and standardise the grading of the student. This is the front of the grading criteria, showing the interim and final grades for student X. To work out the overall grade, see the section in the grading criteria which explains this. If a grade 3 is given, clear and specific targets must be given to the student to indicate the improvement needed. A grade 3 or 4 in professional awareness or teaching at interim means the student must be placed at risk. We're very proud of our PGs. They're hard-working, professional and dedicated. However, if you have any concerns about them, or if they are graded 4 at interim in any area, or 3 in professional awareness or teaching, they must be put at risk. This means the student is set clear targets and a deadline for making progress. Contact the MMU tutor as soon as possible. Further details are in the handbook. The student will get extra support, clear targets, so they know exactly what they have to do to improve. The students work really hard on the files, and each year they say they want to share these with you and have their efforts validated. An outstanding file tells us a lot about a student in terms of their organisation, professionalism and conscientiousness in their marking and recording, their creativity in their resources and their reflectiveness and their thinking. Please find some time to look through their files and engage with them. You could add comments, put post-it notes, or even a few smiley face stickers. I have said that the class tutor-student relationship is very similar to the teacher-pupil relationship in terms of modelling, questioning, challenging, supporting, encouraging, and being a role model for the student. You may also find that your role changes over the placement as the student moves from survival to experiencing difficulties to plateauing and then moving on. And at the same time, you may have to adapt in the mentor support and guidance you give to your student. This was a powerful moment for me. I visited a student in a school in Hayfield. At interim, he had captivated the children in the role as a survivor of the Great Fire of London. And when I returned at final, the children had built Pudding Lane, and then he had persuaded them to recreate the Great Fire of London and burn it all down. He made me watch the video. The children loved it, but what was powerful was the class tutor had said to Sean, the student, in her feedback, "That was brilliant, Sean. Creative, imaginative, and you certainly took a risk. But why did you do it?" This really made Sean reflect on the planning, decision-making, and the impact he had on the children's learning. This was really good mentoring. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for being part of the training for our next generation of fantastic teachers.